being in love, and that includes, being in love with your friends and having a really great community and loving relationships. This is freedom. Like, this is like you blossoming and blooming and being able to be yourself. And this is adventure. And this is, creativity. And this is where all of those wonderful things come from.
You're listening to the Science and Spirit of Happy podcast, where we discuss the rational, strategic, and psychological methods, but also the deep reasons and spiritual philosophy behind being happy down to the soul. Happiness isn't just hedonism. It's not even solely personal. Getting happy dramatically increases your effectiveness in every area, from business and finance to relationships. When we align with our own personal version of ideal, we end up not just happier, but healthier, more whole, more successful and richer, but even loving and loved. It's my opinion that getting happy for yourself is the absolute best way to serve the people in your life. I'm your host, Laura Lee Bowers, master healer and academic researcher. And this is another episode diving into
the science and spirit of happy.
A logical path to soul.
Welcome back, y'all. Good day. Oh my goodness. So it hasn't really probably, or I hope it hasn't been that long since you heard from me, but it's actually been a really long time since I've been able to connect with you, because it's actually been quite a few months since I recorded. So I hope that you've been listening and, we've been keeping our relationship with one another up to date, but it's actually been quite a long time for me to be able to connect. And if you're on my email list, you know that I absolutely love y'all. I'm in love with my relationships with my people. So I'm really, really happy to be back. We're talking season 2. We're talking about relationships, okay? We're talking about getting the friends that you want, getting the romantic partner that you want. And even this is a segue, this mini season is a segue into season 3, which is going to be a season on parenting, right? Like creating those kinds of leadership relationships that you want. So this is, it's very much a time that we're talking about connection, right? So I'm really happy to be connecting and to be reconnecting after, taking a break from recording for a while. So I just wanted to sort of chime in on why I'm deciding to, record this season, because I'm not a relationship expert at all. If you even listen to the last season, it wasn't even clear whether I was going to stay in my marriage, and I think I've been pretty explicit about how many serious issues I've had in my romantic relationship and with my husband. But I've just been noticing these trends online that are sort of bothersome, as well as I spent the first maybe 3 or 4 years of our relationship with my husband getting into, a very deep familial relationship with him, just being so surprised that all of these things that I was told about relationships were so wrong. All of these negative things about relationships that I feel is societally pushed on us. Maybe I just had a really negative view of relationships from having a really negative, experiences with relationships, and having, been raised by people who had very negative experiences with relationships, that maybe I had, just a specific viewpoint that was I thought relationships were going to be a certain way, but I feel like it really is many things we're told about relationships being, draining, the whole ball and chain, and how like relationships are, take the excitement out of life, and, singleness, being single and free to do whatever is the epitome of like happiness and adventure. I was just so surprised that all of these myths really were completely opposite to the truth and to the reality. And I just there's just so many misconceptions, I feel like. And especially for those of us who weren't, maybe raised around like really healthy relationships, we need to hear about what healthy relationships actually are, that they're, super exciting, that, there's way more joy, that they actually free you in a lot of ways, that, dating is actually like a crazy burden, and being in love, and that includes, being in love with your friends, and having a really great community and really lovely relationships, loving relationships. This is freedom. Like, this is like you blossoming and blooming and being able to be yourself. And this is adventure. And this is, creativity. And this is where all of those wonderful things come from. It's not the other way around. So there's that aspect that I was really surprised by, what I'd been told about relationships versus the reality of having a really loving, close relationship, and now in marriage, etc. But then also I had followed this woman because I saw this blip of an interview that she gave, and she was talking about people's childhoods, and she was saying this really, erudite thing about how if you take care of them before they're 3 years old, this is like really you've really laid the foundation, and then you don't have to worry so much about them, and whatever. Anyways, this woman was beautiful, and she was so well spoken, and she was so just charismatic and just lovely, and just really charming, and I was so drawn into what she said. It sounded so lovely. And so I followed her on social media, and then I found out that like she's actually a relationship advice person. And the advice that she was giving was so shallow. I remember looking at this post and just thinking, my gosh, like, this is the way that you stay dating for the rest of your life. Like, she was saying this stuff that was just this really strategic way of, getting into a relationship, which was, well, she was saying that you have to play to your level anyways. It was so shallow, and it was so strategized, and it was so linear, and it was so anti-connection that I was pretty appalled by it, honestly, that somebody's giving relationship advice that's egotistical, that's would separate you. I don't know. Maybe she was disappointed that people she's coaching or whatnot are not getting into the relationship that they wanted. And her example was, somebody saying that they wanted somebody that drives a Lambo, and that they've hooked up with people who drive, a Lamborghini. So why can't they be in a relationship with one? And she was like, honey, we hook up with people, and then we have relationships with different kinds of people. Like, if you're not at the Lambo level, then you can't be expecting and hoping for somebody who drives a Lambo. And there's just so many things that are wrong with this statement. Like, for one, if you're looking for relationships that meets the criteria for shallow, vain, egotistical, a list that you're making that is going to, like, you want to floss in a Lambo, but you don't want to do the work to get a Lambo for yourself. So you are expecting some man to, I'm like, okay, so yeah, maybe you do need to, have something shallow and vain that's of equal value to offer this person, if that's the kind of relationship you want to have. But, somebody who has the ability to purchase a Lamborghini, to live, at a certain class of living, maybe we're talking about like a traditional, scenario where it's the man who drives a Lambo and it's the woman who wants the guy who drives a Lambo. Like maybe you're an incredible homemaker. Maybe you are like next level mother. Maybe you are just like a next level house manager and you want to marry someone who, is at your level, right? Who has that kind of like the monetary equivalent of like your skills. Like that's a completely different conversation that we're having. And it has nothing to do, you can't quantify, like how good of a house manager you are, how good of a wife you would be, etc. You can't quantify these things by equating them, like you need to look for somebody in your income bracket. Like it just doesn't make any sense. This isn't how relationships are formed. So I looked at this advice and I just thought, like, this is the way that like you continue dating for the rest of your life. This is the way that you never fall in love. This is the way that you get when you go into the ET, the ego tool, and you start trying to relate to people from this place. And so I thought that, my relationship is so far from perfect. Like it's so far from perfect. Like absolutely. I just felt like I had a kind of insight. I have some insights. I wanted to show up here, warts and all, to explain to you how real relationships work, at least from my vantage point, and how I understand them within the context of the sustainable dreams theory, of the science and spirit of happiness, right? The science and spirit of happy, of getting happy, of being happy, of having happy, healthy relationships, being aligned. And I think I have a really unique vantage point on this too, because I went from having the most dysfunctional non-relationships. I don't know if I'm the only, I don't think I know I'm not the only person out there, but I'm not sure if I've coined the term passive affection, but I was like a professional passive affection person. I couldn't even, really like connect with people like in person. Oh, I don't even want to, I'm embarrassed. I don't even want to talk about it, but I have to kind of like bear, what is skeletons in my closet? I don't know if it's skeletons in my closet, but like bear my like heart of like where I'm coming from. Where I'm coming from is somebody who like absolutely could not, I would have like a panic attack when people would get close to me. So living every day with my partner, my co-parent, right? He's my business associate. He works for me. We're together 24/7. Less now that we have a baby because somebody has to be with the baby all the time. And so if one of us have to do things that isn't baby appropriate, like recording a podcast, then the other has to go and do other things. And yeah, or even going to yoga, etc. So we do separate things more than we ever have now. But like, yeah, I mean, I went from inventing passive affection to like a solid, striving to be equitable partnership, and we both have trauma. We both have trauma that would send us into the ET, the ego tool, that would make us shallow and vain, to an extreme. And I feel like everyone is kind of facing this, everyone that wasn't completely loved fully and perfectly and wholly, or hasn't healed every single part of that. We're all facing this kind of trauma that makes it very difficult to be vulnerable, right? So we're going to talk about what exactly it takes to get the friends that you want, the partner you want, etc. But from Brené Brown's work that that's a big, big part of it. I also think that this is really timely for me right now because we got stuck in Canada. You may know the story if you are familiar with, last season of my other work, etc. But we got stuck in Canada from the pandemic, and then we usually live in Australia. And then we were on our way back to Australia, and I found out I was pregnant, and they thought I had a complication that wouldn't allow me to fly. And so I came back to my home on Vancouver Island, and we signed a lease on an apartment and furnished the entire thing, and then found out that there was no complication and I could go, but we had canceled all of our flights. We had canceled all of our everything. So we've been here since. So I am now back in, my hometown, the place I went to university. I'm living in a building. The condo that we live in is in a building where I came to hang out with like my friends' parents when we were growing up. So there are like multiple parents, mothers of my friends that I had like years ago when I was a completely different person, as well as employers of mine, people like 2 doors down from me, or like people that I used to work for when I was a teenager. In fact, one of the people, some of my friends still work for them. So I've got all of this sort of history that's right here in my face now. I'm reflecting on who I was, 15 years ago, and who I am now, and the difference between, the friendships that I used to have and the friendships that I'm creating now, the friendships that I have now, the friendships I enjoy, and the friendships that I want to create. I've also been part of a community of women who all had babies around the same time within the same week. So what brought us together was this timing. We all went to the same midwife group. Actually, we all had our babies birthed by the same midwife because the whole team was on vacation at the time. So that kind of like drew us together. So what brought us together was this thing that wasn't, ourselves, whatever. So I've been friends with these women now for almost a year and a half. And, they have like varied backgrounds of different kinds of romantic relationships and different kinds of friendship styles, etc. But I've gained a lot of perspective, on like different people and how different people relate and how I used to relate and how I've grown and how I want to relate and etc. It's just the perspective I've gained has been pretty broad. And I think it's a really good time to talk about this stuff, how to make friendships that you want, how to be the person that you want to be, how to have the relationships that you want, how to get the love that you crave, how to get the respect, how to enjoy that peace of mind of having a community that takes care of you. And although I am no kind of expert on relationships, obviously, and I am, going to show up warts and all with my totally imperfect, at times even like problematic relationship. And I think that's really going to add to the conversation. I don't think that takes away from it. I think that's really going to add to it. But I do want to also add that as many issues as I have with my husband, we are really two peas in a pod. When you kind of think about that relationship that you want, usually people want pretty kind of amalgamated, two peas in a pod, kind of two pieces of a whole, people that are really, really connected and really, really together. And we have that, like we're really like, we see to eye on almost everything. The kinds of differences that we have are like the kinds of hot sauce that we like, he likes, sriracha and I like Cholula, what I mean? These are the kinds of like, disagreements we have, or like stuff like that. There are no relationships that I envy. The problems that we have, the problems are programming problems. They're trauma. Okay. So and they're well-established ones too. So they're really difficult to get over, but we're actually getting over them. And my husband fights for our relationship consistently. Like, that's one of the things that is absolutely necessary for a romantic relationship, or any relationship, really, a business partnership or a friendship, is that both people are willing. And my husband is very, very willing, mostly. We'll talk about that later. But he never leaves. Like, he fights for us. He flew across the world to be with me. And in this day and age, and this hookup culture, etc., we had like a kiss and a cuddle one time, but we were friends. We hadn't, gone all the way. And he flew across the world to move in with me in a foreign country, in Asia, in a country neither one of us had ever even been to. He fought a crazy Frenchman who was like twice his size without even thinking about it. He didn't actually have to physically fight him. He was like we were in Australia, we were younger, and we had gotten in this rental situation with like this crazy backpacker that was trying to rip everybody off. But anyways, he was like trying to charge into our room one time. And like my husband, who is like average height, average size, like threw this Frenchman out of our room and closed the door against this guy who is twice his size, very fit, and in a rage, absolutely. And he was like bananas crazy. He just like threw him out of the room and like closed the door on him, trying to like shove and force his way in because I was in the room. He's also took on a 6-foot python. I had this rescue bird on our balcony in Australia, and a python came to eat it, and it had feathers all in its mouth when I woke up. So he thought that the bird was already dead, but he took on this python, this Canadian guy, right? Like we don't know how to deal with 6-foot pythons. This Canadian guy, my Canadian husband, he takes on this python just so I didn't have to watch my rescue bird be eaten. And the rescue bird was fine, so thank goodness he did that. But like, he didn't even know that there was something to save at that point. It was just for me to like not torment me. He faces his demons for me, if not as quickly and efficiently as I'd like. He does it ultimately. He's a feminist. He strives for an equitable relationship, even though like we're nowhere close to that yet. Like, we are not, but he strives, he wants it. Which again, when we're talking about working things out with people, if somebody's willing, I mean, you can do anything as long as you're willing. If you truly, truly are willing. And, he is. And our problems, the problems that we have, they're problems to him too, right? So the problem with our relationship not being equitable, this is a problem to him as well. So he and I don't have problems not seeing eye to eye, right? I mean, sometimes in the moment, so-freaking-lutely we do. And we'll talk about fighting later. I think that's is it episode 4? I'm not entirely sure, but later in the season, we're definitely going to talk about fighting. But I mean, we work together, we travel together, we raise our son together. We've been apart twice for 2 nights. Once he went to see family, and once I had to fly somewhere for work overnight without him. And we're going to talk about space in the 3rd episode, and like whether relationships need space or what kind of space relationships need. But many people have remarked to me that being around their partner as often as I'm around my partner would not work for them. So, we're doing something that is pretty next level in a lot of ways. So I also mentioned I come from total non-relationships, okay? So I come from trauma. I come from egotism. I come from, I was raised by a single mother in a broken family. I can't even get a straight answer out of my parents for like how long they were actually together. Now I'm married. Okay. And I have a baby, and I'm in love with my husband. And, we just celebrated our 6th year just the other day. So, like so far doing like exceptionally better than my ancestors. So what gets you the friends and family you desire? Well, I don't want to say you get the friends and family that you deserve, because I would like to think that I am speaking to the part in you that is your higher self, right? That is the better version of you. So it's not that you get the friends and family that you deserve. And that's, when we're born into a family, obviously we're just born into a family. I'm not going to get karmic on you. I don't think that is a thing, really, sort of, kind of. Anyways, it's just in Hinduism, the karmic cycle, like you're born into the family that because of your like past karma. So I don't really think that the universe punishes. So whatever ways we want to look at karma, I just don't think that, you being born into an abusive family or poverty or whatever is really because you did something bad. Maybe you had something to learn from it. I don't know. I think you can definitely turn your mess into your message and turn your trauma into something that's really beneficial. My husband and I both have very similar kinds of trauma, although quite different as well. Very similar kinds of familial trauma. And I hope that is the fuel that lights the flame of us building a really beautiful family, right? Because we know pain. So just stuff to think about. But what gets you the friends and family that you desire is really you being the person that those people want to be with, right? So you want the husband with the integrity. You want the husband who loves and respects you. You want, the friends that support you, that nurture you, etc. Like, this isn't just about reciprocity. Like, nobody owes anybody friendship or a relationship or anything. So it doesn't matter just because you're faithful, because you're physically faithful and, you would be there for somebody when they call you in a crisis or whatever. Just because you are those things doesn't mean that you all of a sudden deserve, somebody who would do the same, even though, in a perfect universe, you would. However, you being the person that the people, that respectful husband wants to be with, like, that's really where you need to be striving, right? And if you think about yourself, like if you really think about yourself with those friends, with that partner, that wife, whatever, when you think about yourself in those shoes, you are a different kind of person, right? So you have to like be that person. You have to get to the place where you are that person. Because the people that you want to be with, really, the romantic partner that you really, really want, the friends that you really, really crave, that community that you are just like so drawn towards, those people know that they don't owe anybody anything better than anybody else, right? So this isn't like a trick thing. Getting back to that, like, these like dating schemas, where you have this like strategy. Like, you can fake people out. You can pretend that you have, this epic life going on, that you wouldn't sacrifice the things that you're doing for somebody else, or, that you're sought after or whatever by like not returning a text or whatever, or having these like kind of strategies to create a vibe that isn't actually true. But that's so short-lived, right? These are the kinds of things that will keep you dating forever. And I have no doubt that this woman that I followed is exceptionally good at dating. But is she good at marriage? You can seem exciting and attractive as a friend short term by, doing all kinds of things. But, pretending that you're this or pretending that you're that or having, all these like interesting activities. And maybe you'll have people who want to do those activities with you, etc. And maybe that's a good way to make friends too. But unless you really are the person that those people want to be with, everything's going to be short-lived. So how do you be the person that you want to be? How do you be the person that you want to be? And the person that the people that you want to be around want to be with? Well, that's where vulnerability really comes in. And vulnerability is something that I didn't understand. It's something that my husband didn't understand. I don't even know when that TED Talk was that Brené Brown came out with vulnerability. I feel like it's at least a decade ago, probably about 10 years ago. So, I've been chewing on this for quite some time. And it's just been coming to me over the years, I guess. It's been slowly coming to me what vulnerability actually means. And what it doesn't mean. My husband just said it to me the other day. I thought vulnerability was just telling somebody, my background. It's no, like vulnerability starts inside you, like being able to feel how you feel, right? To like actually look and see like, who am I and how do I behave and how do I treat people and how does that make them feel and what do I want? And is that okay? If I've got any people pleasers in the room, you're going to be like, I do that all the time. I do that all the time. I'm constantly thinking about like, how am I affecting people? And like, am I making people like unhappy or whatever? And my answer to that person is to like, well, vulnerability would be, telling yourself that like, sometimes you don't want to do that. Sometimes that's not the thing that is the jam. That's not the thing that makes you feel good. Being vulnerable enough to look and see whether, that's okay with you, that somebody would expect you to be like always thinking of them and never receiving, etc. That's part of vulnerability too. Crazy, right? Do you know that feeling vulnerable is why abusers behave the way that they do? That's right. Abusers, 95% of the time, the abusers that seek help don't ever get better because they actually think that they've been harmed. Because feeling vulnerable is so uncomfortable to an abuser that they actually feel like the person who's made them vulnerable has attacked them. They feel like they're acting in self-defense. This is also why we react in really negative ways sometimes, even if we aren't, classic abusers. We can react in really negative ways because the vulnerability hurts. So when you're making a new friend, this happened to me actually. This has been happening to me actually. Making a new friend and, they don't text you back for 2 weeks. I had a new friend who, has done this to me a couple of times where they don't text back for quite some time. And I'm like, screw them, like, just like, F that, whatever, I don't know, just like really, really negative, like anger, or whatever. When the real feeling is that like, I feel rejected, like I feel super rejected and it's not actually coming from somewhere personal. Like I'm taking it personally because the vulnerability is so uncomfortable because I feel so bad about this vulnerability that like I'll get like defensive, this defensive feeling pops up. But like what's really happening is like, I feel, like rejected or whatever else, like you're angry that like some, guys like ghost a lot these days, you're like super angry that somebody goes to you because you feel abandoned and you feel betrayed, and maybe you're triggered into those feelings from your childhood, etc. Like, feeling vulnerable is getting past that, getting past the defensiveness to feel how you feel. You know, like, I feel rejected right now, and maybe grieve it. And you can hope that, like, you could be friends, and grieve the hope that you could be friends. Maybe you can't. And maybe they're going through something crazy, and you can be friends. But right at this moment, they can't take care of your feelings. So you have to take care of your own feelings. Now, that's vulnerability. Like, feeling these feelings and learning to cradle them, learning to be okay with them. That's how you learn to cradle somebody else's feelings. So that's why the people that you want to hang out with, they don't want to hang out with a people pleaser, okay? They want to hang out with somebody who knows how to take care of themselves, who will in turn know how to take care of them in response, not just like not piss them off. Grieving is vulnerability. Grieving, you know, this guy who you were super into, who just ghosted, like, grieve. Like, ow, that hurts. I feel worthless. Man, this person has made me feel worthless. And let it go. Like, let it out, right? Not let it go, like push it away. I hate that too. These like, let it go, you know? It's like, no, like, let it out. Let it be. Like, you feel worthless. Okay, you know, vulnerability is feeling that. Vulnerability is unbearable to people who are scared, to people who are scarred, to people who are living inside the ego tool instead of using the ego tool as, you know, a tool. Vulnerability is unbearable to people who inherently feel unsafe. You know, maybe they don't even know how they feel. Maybe you don't even know how you feel. Maybe, you know, I would think that I am angry, and screw her. And you know what? I could find people that would agree with me and say, yeah, that was wrong of her, and she's in the wrong, whatever. But you know, that's just being attracted to the sameness, right? That's just being like attracted to who I am right now. So when I shift that, when I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling really like upset about, you know, this person like not responding to me or whatever. Like, I was actually really invested in like creating a relationship, and now, you know, my hopes are dashed, and that sucks. And I feel unwanted. Well, you know, somebody else has had that exact experience before. And maybe that person is like done all the work to be like an incredible human being. And they're going to turn to you and say, hey, like, I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, I hate that too. And hey, I'm glad that you told me where you're at, because now I know that I'm not going to not text you back, at least for a little while or ever. You know, I'm going to remember that this is like something that hurts you or whatever. We are attracted to sameness, right? So when we keep getting the sameness that we don't want, that sameness is trying to make you see the wrongness of that. So maybe that's it. Maybe, you know, like, I've been attracted to friendships that don't go anywhere, aren't supportive, or just aren't what I need, aren't dependable. And maybe being attracted to that sameness again is trying to show me something about myself that isn't aligned with who I want to be. And if it's not aligned with who I want to be, it's not aligned with who I want to be around. I was going to talk about the most transformative thing that I did to find love, but I think I'm going to have to do another episode, because I told myself that I was actually going to stick to the time limits that I have set myself this season and not get crazy into all of these topics in depth, because I feel like what I've already laid down is probably enough for today. So I'm going to talk about the most transformational thing I did to fall in love. And it has something to do with getting my heart broken. Probably in the next episode, I think we're going to make a new episode on heartbreak and how to fall in love. And we're going to talk about all of that in the next brand new episode that I just decided I was going to do right now. So I hope that you are being the person that you want to be right now, and that you are following us and subscribed, and that you're on my mailing list, because I send out little love letters every week to my mailing list is like my heart. So you can get on that by getting the Unstuck course, or just going to the website and signing up. And until next week, or until next time, if you're going to click on another episode right now, go for it. I bid you adieu. Good day, y'all.